Hey everyone, in this video we're going to take a look at the grammar exercises from chapter 14 of the Road to Latin textbook, specifically grammar exercise 1. Now before we dive too far into it, like I always tell you, the first thing you want to do before you dive into the grammar exercises and make sure you have everything else in the chapter done, particularly the vocab. That'll help you just to understand what the sentences mean and translate them, but the grammar as well. You want to make sure that you've read through all the grammar notes, you've tried to practice a little bit, and if you need help with any of this, I would recommend my website. You can find all my notes there. Different explanations, videos, practice problems that go beyond the textbook. Everything you need would be there. But one way or another, you want to make sure that you've had a really good chance to dive into the grammar, and you can use the chapter stories to help you with this, and you really should do that. So the great thing about Road to Latin textbooks like it, but particularly Road to Latin, is the textbook will work the grammar into the stories in a very repetitive way. So a lot of these stories in chapter 14 are repeating second declension neuter nouns over and over again in different sentences, using different cases, things like that. So if you can read these stories and understand it, it means that you probably have a really strong idea on how the grammar works. But you always want to use the story as a way of practicing your grammar in context. That's the best way to do it, not just looking at charts and memorizing charts and endings and things like that. Okay, so if you haven't done that, pause the video, make sure you go do all this background work, kind of work your way through the grammar on your own, practice it, and then when you're ready and you feel like you have a good answer for all the questions in grammar exercise 1, go on with the rest of the video and double check that your answers are in the ballpark of mine, and that's how you know that you're ready to move on. Okay, so grammar exercise 1 starts like this. Okay, "Ia pericula belli semper sunt magna." Okay, so the blanks here are belli and magna. So pericula is your neuter noun. It's the dangers of war. Okay, pericula belli, right? The belly there is genitive because you're talking about dangers of war. Okay, now the of war is going to be a second declension neuter genitive singular, right? Bellum is a neuter noun. So it's just going to be a long I, right? Which is not anything particularly crazy or different from masculine. So there's dangers of war. But if you get rid of the of war part, your main sentence is the dangers are great, or semper. They always are great. So magna is describing pericula. That's why they have the matching a ending. It's neuter nominative plural. So you're saying the dangers of war are always great. And again, that has to do with noun adjective agreement and just matching your neuter noun with your adjective. Okay. In number 2, you have circum oppidum est murus altus. So the blank here is oppidum. So you're saying the murus, the wall around the city, circum oppidum. Now, circum is a preposition that takes an accusative. Okay. Now, since we have, and maybe town would have been a better way to do oppidum, but one way or another, town is probably good. Okay. Oppidum is a neuter noun. So if you're looking at it, you're looking for an accusative singular because you're talking about the wall, right? The one wall. So it probably wouldn't make sense to say the wall is going around many cities. So you're looking for accusative singular neuter. It's still going to be a UN, right? It's a second declension noun. So that's where you get circum oppidum. Okay, so again, altus just means high. So that's where you're getting the wall around the city is high. So it's just trying to see if you can remember that circum, the preposition, takes an accusative. And in this case, it's going to be neuter accusative singular. Okay. For number 3, you have castra proxima oppidis non sunt. So castra are forts, okay? That's another neuter word, right? Castrum would be the singular. So you're saying the forts non sunt proxima. Proxima is going with castra, okay? That's why you have the endings matching, because it's an adjective describing castra. So you're saying the forts are not near the towns, okay? So proxima is one of our special adjectives that takes a dative, right? And it doesn't say in exercise 1, right, in chapter 14, whether it's a town or towns, but because they use the word castra, which is the plural form forts, it probably makes a lot of sense to make this towns the plural. So that's why I put the long is there, right? It's dative plural. Okay, so you're saying the castra, again, the forts are not close to or near to the towns, the oppidis, right? And again, oppidis is just dative neuter plural in the second declension. Okay. In number 4, you have in castri sunt multi viri armati. So you're saying there are multi viri armati, right? Many armed men, meaning many soldiers, in castries, in the forts. Okay. So here on number 4, again, it probably makes sense to pluralize it. You could have technically said in the fort if you wanted to. If you just wanted to do one, I thought it made more sense to pluralize it, which is why I had castries. But either way, in castries, in the forts, the in here is showing position or location. So if you think of our prepositional phrases, this needs to be ablative, okay? So if you follow what I did and say in the forts, you're going to be using neuter, second declension, neuter ablative plural, which will be is, right? If you want to say in the fort, it would be castro, right? If you want to make it singular. I guess it kind of depends on how you want to do it. Either one would technically make sense, okay? In number 5, you have valum castri est firmum. So valum, the rampart, that's your neuter noun. So the main idea is valum est firmum, right? Firmum is describing valum. So they're going to have the same um ending because you're saying the rampart is strong, right? The valum is part of like the wall, right? The rampart. Okay. Castri here is just genitive of the fort. Okay. That's why you put the long I, it's genitive singular. So you're saying the wall or the rampart of the fort is strong. Okay. So again, nothing particularly crazy there. You're just following, the same thing that we've been doing. In number 6, you have legatus et viri sunt proximi valo. Okay, so your subject is legatus et viri, the lieutenant, the legatus, right, the legate, and the men are close to something, right? Proximi. Proximi there has a long I because you have a plural subject, viri et legatus. They're both masculine, so you have that long I ending. But remember, being near to something takes a dative, okay? So again, instead of ramparts, I went with rampart, singular, right? So it'd be wallow because it's second declension, neuter, dative singular, right? So you could do, technically, if you want to, say the ramparts and pluralize it. Sure, it wouldn't really matter, I guess, but in the context of the story, I think they're talking about sort of in our story, the one singular fort. So wallow made a little more sense to me, right? One rampart. In number 7, you have nuntius et legatus proelia non timent. Okay, so you're saying the nuntius at the the legatus, right? The messenger and the lieutenant do not fear battles. Now, proelia here, right, is plural, and it's marked that way in the Road to Latin textbook, right? There's a PL next to the word proeli with the blank. Okay, so you're talking about battles. It's accusative, plural, right? We just said it was plural. Proelium is a neuter noun. So if you look at our chart, neuter, second declension, accusative, plural is an A. That's one of those key aspects of neuter nouns that we're learning in this chapter. The nominative and the accusative are going to be the same thing. And when it's plural, it's an A. Okay, that's where you get proelia from. So they don't fear battles. Okay. In number 8, you have nuntii ad oppidum auxilium celeriter vocat. Okay, so the messengers quickly call, right? They're call for auxilium. They call for help, right? Auxilium again is your neuter noun that you're looking at this chapter, right? So it just means reinforcements. You could pluralize it technically, and honestly, it would have still probably made sense if you made this auxilios. They were looking for reinforcements. Sure, right? It doesn't really matter either way. There's a couple ways you could do it, but they call for help at the town, ad oppidum, right? So oppidum here is going to be singular because it's one town. Same thing. Ad takes an accusative, so that's where you're getting the ending, right? It's second declension rather, accusative singular. So that's why you have it. And the textbook on number 8 marks oppidum as being singular, and the idea is that the messengers are going to the town and calling for help. So again, you can think of it as help as a singular word. If you wanted to pluralize it, it would mean that they're calling for like reinforcements. Either one would technically make sense there. Okay. In number 9, you have intra oppidis sunt neque feminae neque puellae. Okay, so intra means inside, right? And so intra is going to take the ablative here, and it's plural because in number 9 they marked it with a PL, right? The Road to Latin textbook, which is why you have oppidis there. So inside the towns there are sunt neither, right? You have neque, which means neither nor. There are neither women, feminae, nor girls, puellae. Okay, so just saying there aren't women or girls in the towns, right? Plural. And again, oppidum is your neuter noun. And finally, you have number 10. You have templa romana aras habet. So templa means temples. It comes from templum, right, which is our neuter noun, one of them for this chapter. The plural becomes templa. That's the neuter nominative plural. So we're just matching the adjective Roman to the word templa, right? Temples, and that's why they match. They're templa romana, Roman temples. And this is where this chapter can get a little tricky because the A ending feels like it probably should be singular based on the first 13 chapters we saw. But when you're dealing with neuter nouns, that A is going to be a plural ending, either nominative, which is what it is here, or accusative, right? That's where you get the A. So templa romana means the Roman temples. They have habent, there's our verb, and notice the NT, it's plural. They have aras, which are altars, right? It's just accusative plural. So you're saying Roman temples have altars. Okay, so hopefully that all made sense, right? This is a little bit of a trickier chapter, I feel like, for my students, particularly when they're starting out in Latin 1, right? Maybe in like middle school Latin or whenever they're learning it. The idea of neuter nouns, it gets into grammatical gender. It can be a little bit tricky, right? Particularly when you've been studying first and second declension nouns like we have, and neuters haven't come up. Now you're almost making like an offshoot of second declension nouns. It can be a little bit tricky, but hopefully this made sense. If you have any questions at all, feel free to put them in the comments below. I'm more than happy to help you out or explain anything if I didn't say it correctly, or you just need more explanation. Let me know. I'm happy to do it. But otherwise, if you had answers in these 10 that were pretty close to what I had, you can probably feel pretty confident that you're ready to move on. And again, if you want more practice, feel free to do some of the other grammar exercises that Road to Latin has, or even using my textbook. You can find a bunch of Magistrula practice problems. There's a lot of things that can help you kind of shore this up and feel really confident. Good luck.